working printer at home. Thank you.
No problem. So tonight we're having our first in-person and Zoom hybrid meeting of the Coventry Charter Review Committee. The public may be logged in at home. I wanted to call this meeting to order. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to call the meeting to order.
Okay, so now I'm going to call the roll. Michael Brawl.
Yep.
Bradford Inman.
Yep.
Dorothy Jackvoni.
Yep.
Michael New.
Here.
Claire Murray.
Here.
Norma Smith.
Here.
Sandra Restall. And Richard Williams.
Yeah.
Great. We have a quorum. All right, as far as new business, 4.1, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval of the June 9th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve today, June 9th.
Yes, Norma?
Couldn't have me down as absent. I couldn't get on the regular one, so I was only on a listening mode. I was there, but not
I think,
participating.
and I'll defer to Dave, I think Stephanie said because we couldn't confirm your presence and we couldn't have you in any of the votes, then you weren't a participating member?
Yeah, that was really just we understand the situation. It's just that we can't prove it. And I know we're not questioning your veracity. Yeah. Right. No, I know it just, because you couldn't participate. Yeah, they're just,
But in the future, especially because of a quorum, if you had an issue, maybe we could just help you with that to make sure that you can vote if it's necessary.
Being late because I couldn't get in and couldn't get in, so I ended up on hearing, and I thought, well, this is better than nothing, and I just stayed.
Well, we appreciate it. Once again, approval for the June 9th, 2020 meeting minutes. Claire, did you have a motion? Anyone second? Okay. I heard Dorothy. Second it first. All right. So Dave had sent 4.2 is the discussion of proposed revisions to the charter. Specifically.
Can you just call for a vote on? I'm sorry.
Oh,
on
I'm sorry.
4.1?
Can I vote to approve the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Unanimous approval. So 4.2, discussion of proposed revisions to charter, specifically Article 3, Town Council Sections 3.01 and 3.02 for discussion about term limits for town council members. Dave had sent some language for that. Does everyone have that in front of them? Or does anyone need one of these packets that was printed? Okay. Packets were printed. Dave, do you mind?
Yeah, sure.
Just so that everyone can have the information.
Who needs a packet?
Dave, while you're passing that out, would it be best to read through the language or read it out loud for people listening? So for the section 3.01, referencing the town council, the language that would be changed to is the town council shall have 7 members, 1 to be elected from and by the electors of each of the 5 districts of the town, and 2 members of the council at large, each to serve for a term of 2 years, or until their individual successors are elected and qualified.
If I may, can I just explain what this?
Yep, please do.
So I'm just going to back up slightly. After the last meeting, there were a number of requests for charter items. I took all of those requests that came in from members of the committee and from outside the committee, and I basically put all of those items together on this agenda that you have before you, which is also the duplicate agenda for Thursday. With regards to the document you have in front of you, the change to 3.01, I actually incorporated all of the items that were mentioned. Now, these were not mentioned in any sense of approving. So this is, I want to stress, this is a very preliminary, very draft document. So what you have reflected in paragraph 1 is increasing the number of counselors by 2 additional counselors to be elected at large. I know there was also a question about eliminating districts. I did not draft that out of this document, but it's still something that can be considered. The highlighted section that they have before you, that would need to be updated depending on whether you approve adding more counselors and or changing districts. So that yellow section is exactly what the current charter reads. We would be amending that depending on your vote. The term limit paragraph, which is the 3rd paragraph, someone mentioned the Cumberland Charter. This language is directly from the Cumberland Charter, but it does match up with what was briefly discussed as a concept at last week's meeting, which is 2 4-year consecutive terms of service, followed by not being on for 4 years. The 4th paragraph was designed to make a council member ineligible to run for any elected office for a period of 2 years. Again, something that was conceptually discussed and mentioned in the last meeting. And then the last paragraph is really just the language that would accompany the approval of this. In other words, any changes to this would not take effect until the election following the election year that it was approved. So no matter what the changes are, that's the effective date of those changes. So I wanted to just explain. I know we talked about term limits and whatnot, but I included everything in there. So
Okay. Can I ask for the members at large why you did a term of 2 years instead of the 4-year term?
No, really just, I really no specific reason for that. There could be 4-year terms for members at large. I think the document I was looking at had at-large members for 2 years.
Okay. So there are multiple things, like Dave said, within this one amendment. So first and foremost, we have the term limits that we've been speaking about. And it sounds like both you have to take a 4-year hiatus for membership on the town council. It looks like this language in paragraph 4, Dave, if I'm reading it correctly, they wouldn't be able to run for school committee either.
That's correct.
Okay, and I feel as if when we discussed this, that was put out as an idea. It might have even been myself who put it out, but through discussion, people thought, do we want to limit someone that interested in our town politics and willing to run for office from having the opportunity to do so? So I just want to put out what I'm remembering from the, so.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I don't know if the easiest way is to go in order and go around the room and see what people's thoughts are, as far as adding 2 members.
Well, can I just interrupt?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I think the way to approach this is really to address the term limits, and so the 3rd and 4th paragraphs,
Okay.
because that's what the agenda talks about. Even though I've taken the liberty of adding council members, that's not on this part of the agenda, and so it's in there. This will be a working document.
Okay.
So I think the discussion should be on the term limits paragraph and then the following paragraph, if that's something you want to pursue. I understand your comments just now suggest that that's not something you want to pursue. But
Well, I think we want to pursue the term limits, just not disallowing running for another office.
sure.
All right. So does anyone, and I'm just going to ask for a show of hands, does anyone have any input as far as having term limits for our town council members?
Sorry.
We're talking strictly town council members.
Right now,
jobs.
3.01 is strictly town
Town
council. That's
council.
what it references.
Okay. No, I don't. I just hope that someone else runs. I do agree that it's nice to get new blood in there and some new faces, and I think with anything, when you're doing it over and over and over and over again, you get too comfortable and stuff, but there's also a wealth of knowledge there. I just hope that it encourages other people within the town to come forward, but I think it's a good idea.
Right. If we can't get more than one per district, town council, like, this might not be the best form of government for us.
True.
I
Yes.
had 3 people run for my district 1,
Mhm.
last election.
Mhm.
So that might not.
I think the thing is-
Good to hear.
Oh.
That's just my comment.
Yeah, nope. That's a great comment. Thank you. Claire, you wanted?
No, I was just going to say, I think the thing is, what they have to do is get out there, get themselves known so that they can get that vote. These people that have been here have been here a long time. They're known. So if you don't get out there and talk to people and tell them what you're thinking and your perspective, I think there has to be a way to
I
get people
agree.
to know you to a certain extent. I don't think you have to go beating on every door.
Yeah, I also don't know if our group can decide, are people going to have the foot spotter run? Are they going to do what you need to do to get elected? to
No.
office? I think it's
all
more.
all our job is to decide on the term limits, to put the suggestion forward.
I agree totally with you, that you're right, but it's true. You get the benefit. Someone's been there for a while, they got great experience, they're good, that's great. But you're right, we're trying to get fresh ideas moving into town, fresh people moving, and I totally get that. But you're right, my biggest fear too is someone might not run for office,
Yeah.
And if we run into that, maybe we can cover that. But besides that, turn them into a good
I think
idea.
they have systems in place if that happens.
Yeah. And I also think, well, we're not on council at large, but when we get to that, I'm totally in for that.
Does anyone, and I had my back turned to you, Mike, and just want to check to see, does anyone else have any input as far as thoughts on having that 4-year hiatus from town council membership? So just keep in mind, we're not stopping people from ever running again or being elected. It's really just, let's have a breathing period where we can get some new ideas in, and hopefully have our older members continue, when I say older, already ran members, continue to be part of the conversation. So it sounds, and Dave, I don't know when we can vote on whether or not we agree there should be term limits.
So what I would recommend is, I would recommend that you take a vote on the term limits as it's written here. And so everyone is clear. The only thing that would change in this term limit paragraph going forward would be whether you decide to have at-large candidates at some future time. So the concept that you'd be voting on this evening is that if a person is elected to town council, that person shall serve no more than 2 4-year terms consecutively, after which that person shall be ineligible to serve on the town council for a period of 4 years.
So we're voting just on that one paragraph.
Just that one paragraph, correct.
Okay. So I propose that we should vote that any person who is elected to the town council as a district or at-large candidate shall serve no more than 2 4-year terms consecutively. Therefore, he or she shall be ineligible to serve as district or at-large town council member until the passage of 4 years. Do I make a motion? All right, Richard?
I don't think the at-large part should be added to that at this time.
I was thinking the same thing, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm, that's what I,
That's what he was
that's what I,
saying.
that's what I
Oh,
said.
okay, you said
is-
use the
yeah,
language, so.
Yeah, we would,
Now, at large, I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
That's with the out-large.
Without at large?
I'm for it then.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Excuse me?
Can we have some more discussion?
Just on that one, sure, yes, of course.
Yes, so what happens if we don't have a pipeline of people? What's going to happen?
Well, what would happen if the one person didn't run anyway?
That's not the point.
No, I'm just saying, let's just take any situation where the person who ran last time either chooses not to run or people would rather they did not. If a town council is going to be our method of government and people choose not to run for town council, that sounds like a problem unto itself. But I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Not having a town council.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but that's not, I neither agree nor disagree with that, but, with the form of government that we have, do we think there should be a limit to the terms that people can serve?
Yes, my point is, if we don't have the people to run, what are we gonna do? What's the backup plan?
Doesn't pay that much.
What is I don't think anyone does it for the money. What is the town's backup plan? Do we have one?
So, although I don't think that would ever occur, the existing charter in section 3.05 talks about a vacancy in office.
Right.
So if you had an election and you had candidate blank, no candidate running for, let's say, District 6. I know we don't have a 6th district. I just don't want to offend anyone. So no one is elected from that district. I think that would be construed as a vacancy in office, and then the vacancy shall be filled by a qualified elector from the same district. It would allow the council to appoint a person from that district. I think having no one run for a seat is highly unlikely, but certainly within the universe of possibility. I think if that occurred, it would trigger the vacancy language under the existing charter, which says someone gets appointed. In the same manner as though someone were to die in office or resign or somehow be removed. And I don't mean through a recall, just, maybe they move away, move out of town for a job or something like that. So there's a vacancy in that manner.
Is it for a period of time?
It would be the appointment is for the unexpired term of that person's council seat.
Okay, seems safe.
We've done it before.
And then they always have an option of a special election too, if there depends on, there's some state rules that govern when someone vacates an office. If it's within a certain amount of time to the next election, you actually can have a special election. But I think the scenario you've envisioned, I think, would result in an appointment.
Thank you.
While I feel for the person taking notes, I feel as if I should reread what we're voting on and take another vote.
Sure.
So any person who is elected to the town council as a district candidate shall serve no more than 2 4-year terms consecutively. Thereafter, he or she shall be ineligible to serve as town council member until the passage of 4 years. Do I hear a motion?
I motion.
I'm going to give Richard the motion and Michael second.
Does that include the council president too, I assume?
I think it's any town council member, they all get voted in the same way. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We have unanimous approval. 4.3 is the discussion of proposed revisions to charter, specifically Article 4, School Committee Sections 4.01 and 4.02 for discussion about term limits for school committee members. So it's the same discussion moved over to the school committee from the town council. We don't have anything about the at-large members in here, so that takes away that issue. So what we would be talking about is any person who is elected to the school committee shall serve no more than 2 4-year terms consecutively. Thereafter, he or she shall be ineligible to serve as a school committee member until the passage of 4 years. Does anyone have any views on this that are different than their views would have been for the town council?
No, I make a motion to.
Okay, and Dave, nope, I got you. Can we do it that way, Dave?
Absolutely.
And just say,
There's a motion.
so I make a motion that any person who is elected to the school committee shall serve no more than 2 4-year terms consecutively. Thereafter, he or she shall be ineligible to serve as a school committee member until the passage of 4 years. I think I need a motion.
Yeah, you had.
Okay.
I second it.
Bradford motions,
I'll second it.
Richard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to recuse myself from that vote.
Okay.
Okay.
So Claire Murray recuses. All right, now we're on to review of boards and commissions. Discuss necessity of certain boards and commissions, review of inactive boards set forth in charter, review of membership, regular and alternate number of boards and commissions, representation by districts, review of Parks and Recreation Commission, Budget Advisory Board, Personnel Board, and Redevelopment Agency. So this is pretty involved. Dave, do you have where in the charter the boards and commissions are?
No.
They're not all in the charter? Yeah, you'd sent, okay. Should more be under the charter? Is that?
Well, I think you raise an interesting point. I just want to reiterate that the creation of the agenda was based on information that was sent to
Sure.
me. So this has so much in it, which I think requires a significant amount of unpacking.
Yeah,
And you asked me a question of where in the charter do these boards and commissions lie? And they're all over the charter, and they're outside the charter as well as so maybe you could table
we
this.
could table this
And we
for,
could address this on Thursday with some additional information as to where those boards and commissions
But-
are.
well, possibly before we take, is it okay before we table it entirely if Norma kind of gives,
Absolutely, sure.
Madam Chair, if I may,
yes.
everyone, please use your mics. Turn the mic on when you're going to speak. Turn it off when you're done. The only way this is getting broadcast on the audio is if you're using the mics. It doesn't pick up without it, which means I'm going to get an OMA violation if they're not picking up audio. So please use your mics.
All right, and if we notice anyone not using their mics, if we could
Oh,
just
yeah,
point it out
well,
before
yeah.
they.
Remind each other.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
All right, so Norma, if you're on your mic, just wanted to hear your thoughts and what we should really kind of be
Right.
looking.
Well, I think it's extensive, like Dave said, and it needs some reworking for a number of reasons. Where there's quite a few that are, like I say, on the website, but not in the charter. Inactive, no explanation what they are. To me, if you want citizen participation, they should have some kind of explanation as to what each one is. I have no idea what budget advisory is supposed to do, or personnel board, or even the redevelopment agency. Or is it necessary to have all these commissions? Can they be narrowed down into lesser number? Like there's 2 sewer things with the same people on it.
So it's
Sewer
almost like
assessment
some
and
need to be dissolved.
Well,
as
or
well, or
merged.
merged?
I mean, there's a sewer board review and a sewer subcommittee with pretty much the same people on it. I just think it needs some clarification. There's a Parks and Recreation Commission. I don't think that's ever been used. I don't know if that could be helpful to the Parks and Rec Department. It's never been used. So I just think it should be reviewed as to what can be merged or eliminated or whatever. I mean, there's no point in having them if they're all inactive. EDC has got names, but they haven't met in years. I think that's an important one.
I don't think there's a redevelopment either.
It's listed
Agency.
on the website.
Pardon me?
It's listed on the website.
Yeah, but I thought it said inactive. No?
Well, it says inactive. If it's inactive, get rid of it. Take it off.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I looked it up too. and
There
it just
again,
said-
there's no explanation of what they are
Right.
or how many members or like there's one that has 2 council members on, none of the others do. I don't know. That's one of the sewer ones. Is council members a requirement? There's only one that shows districts. How many are on a board? How many, what do you call, alternates and that such? I just think that it needs some work done to explain what they are, especially if you're looking for people to participate. And something else I thought was a possibility is that this particular commission be an ongoing commission where it meets annually or whatever to address annual issues that may come up rather than wait 10 or 20 years to make a commission. I mean, even this is inactive on the website. It says it's inactive,
This commission?
but I think they just haven't updated it.
Well, I also think that it is mentioned in here how often this commission should meet. I can't remember where off the top of my head, but it's something to take a look at and see if that
Well,
makes
yeah.
sense as far as the
It
term.
should meet, it doesn't need to meet monthly, but when
Right.
something comes up, you don't have to wait to find people to be on it. Like they just went through, and I think somebody said the last one was 2010. That's a long
Yeah,
time.
and I think it's 5 years in here, but like I said,
Well, it's a
because
long
I
time.
don't remember.
Yeah, it's just what I'm thinking as far as boards and commissions are concerned.
And my other question, just quick, Dave, is are we locked into anything if we list everything in the charter? And then we want to make a new board or commission. So just curious about that.
So there are certain bodies that are mandated through the charter, and there are certain other commissions or groups that are established from time to time, either by ordinance or by direction of the town council. And those situations where you maybe have a board or commission established by a council edict or resolution, those entities should be given at the time of creation their charge. And it may be to look into a particular issue or conduct an investigation and report back. What I think might be helpful is I will go through the charter and I will give the group here a list of those groups that are set out in the charter. So I think we should put them in baskets. The group that's the basket of commissions and boards that are established by town charter. And then you can have a meaningful discussion as to whether that's necessary, whether they're active, inactive, what you'd like to do with them, and then we can drive directly to that provision of the charter. Then there are boards and commissions that are established by town ordinance, and that's a second bucket. And then there's a bucket that's more of an ad hoc that have been created or either by the council or by necessity for some reason. So I do know that, well, I shouldn't say I know. Some cities and towns are required annually to provide a list to the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust of those active boards and commissions within the town. So for Thursday's meeting, not only should I be able to provide this group a list of those that are within the charter, but we should be able to get from the town clerk a list of boards and commissions that are reported to the trust for purposes of insurance. Obviously, if a commission meets, that meeting is a meeting that's insured as a town meeting. So we can certainly have that information for Thursday or at another date if that's what the commission wants to do. But I think you have to have the list of groups and where they are or where their power comes from, whether it be an ordinance or the charter or the town council, so you can have a meaningful discussion about that.
Okay. Does anyone mind if have any disagreement with tabling that until a later meeting? Okay. Moving on to 4.5, review succession planning provisions under council powers in charter. Discussion of adding or revising provisions to ensure continuity of government, include provisions for acting and or interim town manager and other positions such as police chief. So do you happen to know within the charter what we're looking at right now? There's no reference to a section.
No, I didn't put a reference to a section in there because, again, this was a recommendation. However, upon looking at the town manager section of the charter, so looking at Article 5 of the charter, there is a provision for acting town manager. In fact, on August 1st of 2016, the council adopted a recommendation that changed this. But I wasn't sure, and I think it was a commission member that raised the question of succession planning. But to my mind, succession planning had to do with town manager, police chief. These are appointed, council-appointed positions. And one, and I have experience with this in another town, but one of the components of the acting town manager language talks about the council's ability to have an administrative officer exercise the powers and duties of the town manager during the manager's, and this is the operative language, temporary absence or disability. But those terms are not defined. Is a temporary absence a vacation? Is a temporary absence, undergoing a surgical procedure? Is a temporary absence, it could be any number of things. Some other cities and towns qualify absences by numbers of days. But I think that, well, first of all, I think the council, the commission should discuss what succession planning was intended, and then whether we want to address or change language in the acting town manager section, or what. I just can't remember who made this request.
It was me.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought it up. And I think it's critical. It's 4 critical roles that you need to have a succession plan. Police chief is a critical role.
Just to make sure, you do have your mic on, right?
It's on.
Okay.
I can hear myself.
Yeah, we don't have a police chief either.
Police chief, I mean, all of those
We don't have a
roles.
town manager, police chief, all the biggest positions.
I mean, but that's something that has to be developed through HR, right? HR should have this all mapped out. The town manager is responsible for it, but it should be all mapped out in the charter for HR. Has to happen. And if somebody wants to take a vacation, there should be some language for acting director, acting whatever it is. You know what I mean? Yep. That way you get somebody covering for critical roles.
Sure, what if you have a crisis?
Right. They need to be trained and ready to go. And then, who's going to take over for, when Ed decides to leave? Who's the next guy? We ought to be massaging all that all this time, over, whatever period we think he's going to stay for. Get somebody ready. That's what I meant by it.
So are you envisioning a period, just to address the last thing you talked about transitioning from let's say one police chief to the next, or one town manager to the next? Are you envisioning a requirement of an overlap period within the charter? I'm trying to understand what you envision in terms of succession plan. I understand what you're talking about. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to think about how we could take succession planning and making sure that there are no gaps, and put that into some kind of language that I can write into the charter. So I'm just trying to understand, is that,
I mean, some time limit.
yeah, like an overlap period. So, again, obviously if someone passed away in the office, it couldn't apply. But if you were transitioning, let's say police chiefs, for example, that you had a provision that the outgoing chief would be available for a period of weeks, and that would be, let's say, a period of 2 weeks. So the outgoing chief would know, okay, I have an obligation under the charter. So if I want to start my vacation, I need to start my vacation after this transition period that's set forth in the charter. I'm just an idea. I'm just wondering if that's what you're talking about.
I think in those cases, when someone wants to take a vacation or they've got some personal business, it's who's next in line that could possibly take over for the guy who would be acting for him. for a short period of time.
Sure.
The succession piece of it is really the next person's going to take the role. And it's not how long of a transition period to train the person, although you need that. That's not what I'm driving at. Driving at getting that person ready, finding a person that's going to take over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in other words, if this guy said, hey, I'm giving my notice, I'm going to leave, I'm going to retire in a year, we ought to have somebody ready to step into the role.
Well, I think you have and that's more of a transition that's sort of final. In other words, someone is in fact leaving, someone new coming in. I want to go to your earlier point. Someone's on vacation. I think that in the case of the police department, it's obviously a paramilitary organization. So if the chief is away, the major or the deputy chief or the captain, the chain of command runs down, down the chain. So I think you have built in those automatic things. Obviously, in the case of a chief who is retiring and someone being appointed, that takes it away from the chain of command in the sense that any number of people could apply for that open police chief's exam, including the deputy chief. So I think in a temporary situation, I don't know that the charter is the place where you'd address that for the police department, because I think the police department paramilitary structure is such that if the number one person just isn't there for any reason, you have the number two. You don't necessarily have that same chain of command in the town manager function, because we don't have an assistant manager. And I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying, you have a town manager, and then that town manager either is, here or is on vacation. And in those circumstances, someone else needs to be appointed. If the town manager leaves, then you obviously do what we're doing now, which is a search. So,
I'm just wondering, Michael, if you feel that at least on a way of moving towards this slightly, and we can discuss the changes later, but making changes to the requirements and opening up our candidate pool so that when we're looking for someone to fill these roles, there's a decent candidate pool to look at, as opposed to years going by when we're unable to fill the position based on the criteria we've put in place for it.
Like, why don't we have a police chief right now? That's the thing.
And
we knew he was retiring.
when is that is the police chief in the charter? I think it is, right?
yes.
So that's probably something.
We should never be in this position. I mean, it's an HR issue, really. It really goes back to how you're running your business. And being without a police chief, it's a pretty bad position to be in.
Any idea who the HR is?
I have no idea.
I know. Does anybody?
Well,
how does that
I don't mean to interrupt, but I understand that we don't have a permanent police chief right now, but in fact, the major is the acting chief under that paramilitary command structure. So I understand the concept of we don't have a police chief, or we knew the chief was retiring, who's going to take his or her place. But I think in the police department, that's the least amount of concern as to who's on first, because of the command structure. So in the absence of a chief, we have a number two person, they're the acting chief. And in fact, that's the situation, as I believe that there is a permanent police chief search going on right now. So while they're looking for a permanent police chief, the acting chief is Major Heiss. So that department is not wanting for lack of leadership. It may be wanting for lack of permanent leadership. The appointment of the new chief, but it's not. I don't know that you should view that as a hole or a problem. It seems to be function. I mean, I'm not aware of any particular issues, but I would say it's functioning the way the command structure is supposed to function. In the absence of a chief, the deputy chief or the major is the acting chief.
But we're always out of position, because now we don't have a deputy chief. That means he's.
No, I understand, yeah.
Say like the town manager right now, we don't have an IT person. Instead, he's doing the town manager stuff.
No, I understand that. I just, I understand where you're coming from.
It's not ideal.
Can we make a time limit though? That's the thing, because it's like some of these things go on for years,
Well, I would say that the answer to your question is, yes, you can make a time limit. What I would say in terms of reviewing the world in as it exists, there is a time limit for the acting town manager. That time limit has actually long since passed, with some consternation and some concern about the fact that the time limit has passed. And the council, I think, tried to take some steps to ameliorate that time limit. So having a time limit is a great idea. It doesn't always solve the problem.
But do we have time limits as far as, with the absence of any, issue, the amount of notice we would like to receive from someone in a position like this, when we should have the job posted by, who the hiring team will be, what that will be made up of. So at least have a plan in place so when someone's leaving, you're able to say, okay, we're going to have the job posting reviewed by this date, posted by this date, and the committee will be in place to review applicable candidates. Knowing that if no one worthy of the job applies, you can't have a time limit on when you hire, but just to get the process moving.
I think the answer to your question is, yes, that's something that could be incorporated into the charter, but is probably best incorporated into a personnel manual, which I do know is almost finalized at this point. There is a personnel manual in draft form. I believe it's waiting to be ratified by the town council.
Like, we hired a company to help us do this stuff, but why didn't they say something earlier instead of waiting, all this time? We paid them like 30 grand or something.
I don't know. I can't speak to that.
David, we never had a manual. This is the first time we had a manual.
I don't think it's the first time you've had a manual. There's a rewrite to a manual that's been taking place.
I agree with you. I think it belongs in that manual. The HR department should be running that. But as a town manager, we've got to oversee it, right?
Sure. Well, essentially, the town manager is the head of HR. And, obviously, there'd probably be more continuity with a permanent town manager. That person could put their imprimatur on things like policy manuals and the like.
Right.
So,
Any further discussion? So while we have discussed that the personnel manual is the appropriate place for this sort of information and this sort of succession planning, is there anything, I don't think we've done anything worthy of a vote, but yes, Richard.
I think it should be tabled at this time.
Okay. Does anyone have anything against tabling this at this time? Dave?
I don't have anything against tabling it. I just would ask, is there any appetite in the commission to take a look at any changes to the acting town manager language? And I only put that out there because I think it falls under the succession planning topic, and we did discuss that, and
we're in violation today, correct?
According to 5.03, it does seem as if we are in violation. Yes.
Yes.
So I would agree we need to look at it.
Like,
What I think and
Can I just ask what we're discussing?
Oh, sorry, we're still within 4.5 in succession planning, but what we're doing is we're moving into talking about the language for the town council, for the town manager.
So the last sentence of 5.3 says, no interim appointment shall last more than 180 days. The council has extended that, which is, I mean, you can't be without a town manager. So there are certain principles or rules of construction that you can't interpret a section like this to frustrate the operation of government. So while it does clearly say no interim appointment shall last more than 180 days, the council as the governing body would have the power and authority to extend that because somebody, otherwise you don't have someone in the town manager position. And as a practical matter, that would create an absurd result. And I know it seems to be counter to the language of the charter, but you also have to look at language of the charter versus an absurdity, which is a town without a town manager that's supposed to have a town manager. So, but you know, we could clearly put for example, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you know, no interim appointment shall last more than 180 days without council approval or without the council weighing in on that. I mean, that would be a clear, easy fix to the current situation and the current language of the charter. But
Well, that's why I was getting back at the company that we were paying to do it. I mean, 6 months, that's 6 months already. Then why didn't they say, well, you're going to raise the money or you're going to take the schooling away or something like that, you know? Like that way we can get somebody.
right,
Well, there is the resolution that is going through that Mrs. Dixon made, and that was approved to put before the voters.
I'd like to comment.
As
Yeah,
far,
we'll get
I
to
would
it.
too,
We'll get
but there is that resolution so that they've taken away a lot of these requirements. They no longer have to have the master's degree. I have a little bit of a question on the college thing, but you know, there's no residency requirement, things like that, so that it will open up that pool by taking away that master's in public administration that was so specific. They've taken that away.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is why is it taking so long? If I was giving you $30,000 for the share to do it, well, why don't you say that ahead of time, you know?
But because what happened was those restrictions were so rigid, am I on swell? Were so rigid or so specific that even if they had, which they did, they had applicants from what I understand, but they didn't have a master's in public administration. They didn't have 5 years as a town manager. You know, they didn't have what they needed written with the requirements of this charter to be able to hire them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is the company that we hired, they should have spoke to the council people first saying, you know, maybe you should change this a little bit, you know, don't wait.
Do we know
2-3
that they,
years, you know?
do we know that they didn't? I don't know.
We didn't get anybody.
Well, that's true, but that's why now this language is in for this resolution that passed with the town council. Although I did have one question on it, but they've reduced that. There's no more need for a master's degree. It's a bachelor's degree from an accredited college. They do have to still have 5 years
So are we gonna pay
in
them?
municipal.
Are we gonna pay them again and try it again?
I
Well, my
think,
understanding is that they're not talking about it, but at council meetings, I know that they've been interviewing and vetting people based on the requirements now. What's gonna come of that, I don't know. But I mean, the resolution has gone in. I don't think anybody should hesitate to speak up on it if they want to, but it was approved to go for the voters.
I think at this point, we really should talk about the changes that are going to be made. I don't know if you agree. Because we can't change, you know, kind of accept the things you cannot change sort of thing as far as whatever our
Right.
guidance was. But looking at this language. And Bradford, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
and we'll move to you.
Sure. You know, I got no problem with a lot of the stuff except for residency. I'll tell you why. Does the mayor of Johnston live in Providence? Does the mayor of Woonsocket live in Coventry? Does do people from West Warwick run for the Coventry Town Council? We pay our fire tax, our car tax, our home tax. We pay all our taxes in this town. You're telling me by dropping that, raising the money, they can't get someone that at least moves in 6 months to this town? I mean,
Or at least the state, because it says city or town, at least be
well,
in the
you know
state.
what? And that's not making it big. I'm telling you what, for years it's been, you had a few months to move to the town or the state. It's done everywhere. You get hired by a county out west. You got so much time to move to that county. You get hired by, it's like the town council living in West Warwick and running Coventry. And same thing. What if we get a town manager that lives in West Warwick, say, right? We've already got a conflict because the sewer in West Warwick, we pay them money. You think that guy's gonna want his taxes to go up? You think he's want his house, his fire, all his taxes, his sewer tax to go up? No. He's gonna make sure his sewer taxes are lower at home. What's he care about Coventry? What's the town pride? We need more people that have town pride in this town. That's why people are out there picketing and rioting, because you got the out-of-staters coming into their town doing stuff. It's not the local people, you know? And I think we gotta have more pride in this town. That's a big thing, town pride. And if someone can't take that high-paying job and spend their money in this town, they shouldn't, I mean, really. This is Coventry. I don't live in Cranston. I don't live in Providence. I don't live in West Warwick. I live in Coventry. I live here. My father lived here. My grandfather's grandfather. Everybody in my family, every side. My son wouldn't even buy a house next door. It was so much more to live in Coventry for him. But him and his father, my daughter, same thing with their family. They bought in Coventry because they went to the Coventry school systems. They went from young all the way up. They know Coventry. They live Coventry. They love Coventry. You know, we want someone to come in that's paying taxes somewhere else. And what if we have what if we sit there so he doesn't vote on that? So what? He's giving advice to everybody. You think he can't mislead? I mean, not that he would do that, but there are some people who mislead people by what they say and what they do. It happens all the time. So I think you're talking about a huge conflict by getting some. It's just like the town manager is our mayor. That's our mayor. That's the #1 person in this town. And they can't live here? No, I'm sorry. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. That's all I want to say on that.
Claire's going to go next, and then we're going to move to you.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I mean, they need a few months. I'll give them a couple months to move here. I got no problem with that.
I don't know. I get the concept. I think it's great that if you have a commitment here and you move here, but I don't think, you know, the town council appoints the town manager. They serve at the pleasure of the town council.
Right.
They have a contract that can be terminated at any time. If they're coming in from another state, they want to keep that job. They're not state or what's going on in their state or what's done in their state. If they don't do a good job in the town, they're going to be terminated.
Okay.
And when you're asking, I mean, there are people that will apply from us, let's say the southern states and all over.
Give them a couple months. Give them 6 months.
I understand that, but it's a contract. It only lasts so long. If the town council decides, we don't think he's a good fit, they're here for maybe 3 years, and then they have to. Where do they go? They have to start again.
Right.
I'm just saying that they can commit to be. If they want to keep their job, they have to do their job. Because if they don't do the job,
When's the last time you fired a town manager?
No.
When's the last time you fired one? And I can tell you conflicts. We've had conflicts through the years with town managers, big conflicts. I lived here my whole life, and I never seen a town manager. I never heard of one being fired. So maybe they have. I don't know. I just never heard of it. So I don't, you can say that, but say they live in West Warwick and they're paying taxes in West Warwick, right?
Yeah.
We have an agreement with West Warwick, don't we? With our sewers and everything?
Correct.
You think he wants his taxes to go up? Do you think he or she or whoever want their taxes to go up?
No, but the town manager doesn't get to vote on that.
No, but they're in charge. They're the mayor of the town. They're the
They're the
president
boss.
of the town. They're the boss of the town. They could tell them, all right, hey, you know what? I can do this for you if you do this for me. You know how politics,
I do.
you know how politics
I
work.
do.
You
only
do
got
this for me, I do that for you.
There's 5
Tell me
people on
the
the
town
council.
manager can't work a couple deals here so that his sewer tax is lower?
Yeah, it's power of the purse.
Well, I mean, state law supersedes too.
No, show me that. Show me where that is. I
Yeah,
work hard.
I got it right here, so
Yeah,
I
but-
printed out a big
I do
copy
too. I made a copy.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I don't see it.
also
I don't
says
see it.
It's
I
negotiable.
read it. I don't see it.
we can make the condition of an appointment or
Right.
continued employment.
Thank you.
If-
And it also says city of town. It doesn't
That
say like
was, they,
superintendent doesn't even live in Rhode Island.
I just can't believe that they threw this law at us. Like, research it, you know? I mean,
I wonder how many applicants had their issue being where they lived as opposed to whether they had a master's degree
Right,
in
all
one
the
of
money.
these.
that's true.
I do
Good point.
wonder
I
if
think it's more
we've
of the
had.
master's degree than the residential. I think you'll find 99% of the people would move to this town if you ask.
Say,
I really do.
they don't want to live here?
I mean, why wouldn't they want to live there?
Right.
If they want to work, if they want one of the highest, maybe the highest paying job in town, they want the highest paying job in town, which generates the most taxes, which would help us.
The most power.
Most power in town. That's the most powerful job in town. And they can't move here. Where's the loyalty? Where's the loyalty to Coventry? I want Coventry first. From now on, I think Coventry should be first. You
Let's
know?
vote on it.
Thank you. I don't even know that we're allowed to vote on this. I think it's just the
Oh,
language,
yeah.
but we can say what we think about the language, I believe.
So, and I know this is a, I understand what you're saying, Brad. The
I've
issue,
always had that opinion about.
no, and I understand
town,
that.
State jobs. I don't think people from out of state are working in town. It's
And-
in the state.
And I can tell you, as a matter of law in many cities and towns for many, many years, if you worked in a city or town, you were often required to reside in that city or town. However, in 2005, the General Assembly, the people down on Capitol Hill, passed a law that says that residency within a municipality is not required. And that particular statute, it actually says, just to make the point even clearer, it says any existing ordinance requiring a municipal employee to reside within the employing city or town as a condition of appointment or continued employment is hereby considered contrary to the laws of this state and is thus void as being in violation of state law.
Change that law.
We
So-
are the town charter. We can make our own charter. We're the
It-
town charter. We can make our own charter on this. I don't believe that does secret silver. I don't think it does.
The
I
state's
really
con-
don't.
the state's
That was
controlling it.
made, I remember when that was there. I remember it was at the State House. It was for police and firefighters. That was for police and firefighters
Oh, man.
that were moving to Providence, and Providence had a residency law.
There was
and
school
cops were
teachers
getting-
too.
And cops are getting P.O. boxes in Providence and P.O.
Providence
boxes everywhere else.
It also,
And
I-
that's where the law came from. That's why they wrote that law. They didn't write it for Coventry's, they didn't write that law for Coventry's,
I know what you're, I know what you're saying. I will say that
that was done for the cops.
it does say that even if it says any prior ratification and validation by the General Assembly of a home rule charter requiring residency as a condition of employment is hereby expressly repealed by the General Assembly. So they did address it in including town charters. What they did say, however, just the last paragraph, it says, notwithstanding the foregoing, no city or town with a municipal charter shall be precluded from entering into an employment contract which contains residency requirements with their appointed town or city managers and or town or city administrators. What that means is that while you can't have a residency requirement in the job description for town manager, because the person who is coming to the town to be the town manager is going to be negotiating terms of employment with the town, that person can be, as a condition of their employment in that negotiated situation, their contract can contain a residency requirement. So any reference of residency in a charter, any requirement of residency in an ordinance is no good. It's unlawful. It can't be there. But that does not mean that when you negotiate with an individual who you select to be a town manager, that you cannot enter into an employment contract that contains a residency requirement. What that means is you can have residency in the town as long as you negotiate it through the terms of an employment contract, but you can't have it in your charter. You can't have it as a requirement, as a condition of employment.
I still don't see it. I still don't see it. And let me just say something too. It's like these Second Amendment towns and cities. They did that on their own. The state says you can't do a Second Amendment, yet they all did it. How come they can do that? The state says no Second Amendment towns, yet we have Second Amendment towns. Go tell the people in Burrillville they're wrong. They won't take it. They're not going to take that. There's Second Amendment people there. We can do that. We can put residency in the law. We can. We can. That's not written for us.
Who's even going to enforce this?
Well, we're making a legal document, so we want to make sure that we're working within the state laws. But just quickly, I want to make sure that everybody gets to say their piece.
Right, I'm
Now,
sorry. I'll keep my.
were you speaking on the same
I
issue?
was talking about residency too. I
Okay.
agree with them 100%.
Me too.
But I also don't think it should be 5 years experience. I think it should be 3. They got too much experience in there too, I think. I think it should be 3 years experience, but it should be a residency thing.
Do you think the education is necessary with a bachelor's
I
degree,
think
but not
bachelor's
as much?
degree is good. Master's was no good.
Right, I agree.
That was too much.
I'm wondering if, well, it might not be in the charter, if we could just put in job specs and the job description we put out, that we practice preference. Like, you don't have to live in Coventry, but we will give preferential treatment to Coventry residents or people willing to move to
Yeah,
Coventry.
a lot of jobs do that.
That law said city, it said town or city, right? It didn't say state.
Right, that's what I was thinking, reading it.
Right.
He has to live in the state, though he can. Doesn't say anything about the state on that law you mentioned. I didn't hear anything.
No, the employment, and Mr. Inman is correct that this probably was addressed to certain municipal employees such as firefighters, police, teachers, who didn't want to have to live where they worked. This simply speaks to residing within the employing city or town as a condition of employment. It does not speak to residing in the state.
So no one from out of state can do it then. Only has to be within the state, according to that law,
Right, because it's a benefit for the
Which-
state.
which
to
isn't
write a
much
law like
different.
that.
I still think the residency thing is the best idea. They should feel the pain like everybody else.
Right.
That's what I think.
Got the highest
You
paid
should
job in
feel the
town.
pain with the taxpayers. Everything should feel the same pain. If they're not gonna dictate their policies, they should dictate the same pain.
Not that I'm against West Warwick. That's my worst fear though, is someone like that would come in and have a conflict with Coventry and could persuade people, being the #1 guy in our town, could persuade people, and I'm worried about that. I want their kids to go to our school system. I want them to go learn about our school system, support the town they live in, support the economy they live in. Maybe go to some local restaurants if they're here, whatever. It's terrible when they pack their bag and they go back to their town every night, forgetting about us. And I'm not saying bad about anybody, but I just think that residency is the biggest, that's the only thing. And I got your thing. If you go too high on requirements, you're going to get no one applying, because if someone's got like a lot of years in, they're not going to want to apply for a job because they've got too many years invested.
Right.
And if they're going to take a shot on it, they're going to leave another job. They can't have too much time invested in that job. You're going to look at why people left jobs too. Why are they going to, I hope they're looking at everything.
I do think that the charter locks itself in a lot more than any other job specification would. Usually you would say, this degree, this experience, or some combination of the two. the fact that it just says we want 5 years of experience and a bachelor's degree, just, I don't really understand why they're being so stringent on a specification
Yeah.
they should be looking for the right person for, not someone who fits this specification.
Right, the language could be or equal. Just
And
use the word equal.
Right, or an equivalency. And Dorothy, I apologize because you had wanted to speak earlier.
I do agree with this gentleman, Coventry pride. I understand that. And I think that's, you live here, your kids go to school here, you meet at Pat's, you're in the community, you're part of the community, which is really important. I do have a small issue with the requirements. I mean, they say they need a master's in public administration. Instead of lowering our requirements, why don't we expand them? You can have a master's in finance, in accounting, in operations. You can have they're just exposing it to one area where maybe expanding the academia in different degrees would open the pool up as well.
My 2 cents on that is that I honestly love that they took away a degree that takes both time and money, because they've really cut out a portion of our society that may not have either one or both of those things. So women, parents, people who fall into minority categories, often they're not getting those master's degrees, and we're cutting a lot of people out of the talent pool, a lot of different ideas. I think if we make a master's degree incumbent, and if the town is something that we can do and something that's really important to you, then I think saying you have to live in Coventry, have a master's degree, have 5 years of experience, we just are looking for a unicorn perhaps. And you want to make sure you can find a person that can take a job.
Well, I want to know where they're advertising for the job. I mean, we hear headhunter, but has it been put on the website? Where are we putting this job?
I just put it on the Town of Coventry Facebook page because it's only for Coventry residents up until now. Sorry, that was.
No, but I mean, where are they posting for this job requirement besides a headhunter? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't.
Hmm.
I'm sure we could perhaps get that information.
And I'm not saying that, someone with a bachelor's can't do it. I'm just saying if we expand it upward and out as well. I mean, we're a big town. We have big problems, as everybody knows. We got a lot of department heads here. We've got some serious issues. I'd like to see skilled people, and perhaps someone with a bachelor's who's been in an assistant town manager in Portsmouth, who's willing to throw his, hat and want to become town manager for Coventry. I just think, we got to look out for our best interests too. And I'm not saying, we're going to find the perfect, I mean, we all have something we'd like the candidate to possess, I'm sure, like we do with our jobs and when we hire people. But I just don't want to, I want us to have the best because we are the best. Coventry pride.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Brad, if the requirements, I'm a town manager in North Kingston, and it says 50,000 here, and I'm already there making the same, I'm not gonna wanna come here.
Right.
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 You gotta make it really, good.
Mhm.
I mean, we could have gave the town manager another 30 grand instead of wasting our money on, we could already had somebody.
I'm going to come from this, from a different slice. I agree. I think it'd be great to have somebody from town. I mean, that's a plus. But I want the best and the brightest. How do you get that? You can't get that if you're just saying it's just in the town.
I'm just saying move to the town. I'm not saying you have to live in the town. I'm saying you got to move here within 6 months.
But maybe the best and the brightest doesn't want to move here.
Well, then you
So-
know
so
what?
why-
They don't deserve Coventry.
But
They
why-
don't deserve Coventry. They don't want
But Brett,
to move here. I don't
why-
care how good they are.
But why settle, right? Don't you want the best and the brightest? Don't we want the most qualified person,
Yes.
whoever it might be?
Who loves Coventry like we love Coventry.
Might
You
not
know,
be
who
that.
loves Coventry. I don't
What do
care if it's the, I mean, Bruce Sunderland put in for the job before.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember that.
Right? But then he realized he only had an honorary degree.
Yeah.
He didn't have a real master's degree. He got it from college. So I got a couple of those,
So what does a job pay anyway?
I have no clue.
Everybody says it's the
I
highest.
know it's one of the highest paid. And they raised the money on it too, I think.
I mean, what are you talking about? Talking 400K?
No. It was
Well, you're not gonna get the.
I was gonna say, maybe
You're not gonna get the best of the
130.
Maybe 60,000?
He's joking. No, it was around 130, and they had talked about putting it to 150 because they weren't able to attract
Guys,
anybody.
come on.
Oh, it's that- I thought it was a lot. I thought it was half that price.
That's not a lot of money.
It's not moving money.
Yeah, but
It's,
some people do government for 3 reasons, okay? Some people actually do it for the benefits from retirement, and we all know to do it for benefits from retirement. But there's some people that actually want to do good for society, and they feel it's their civic duty to get out there and do that. And that's why there's so many social workers out there. You know, they're not all glamorous jobs being social worker. You know, they're doing it. Some actually are out there trying to do a good job, a better job for people. You know, and that's what any kind of municipal job or state job. You don't do it for the money. You do it for the security or in the community, or you're doing something you love.
Right, just like us, we're doing it for nothing.
Right, right.
but I just feel as if there could be a lot of people who could be really great at this job and love their town.
Yes, they do.
Possibly they have children who live in that town who are going to the schools there and have friends there. And
Right.
they just have a number of reasons why they would stay living where they're
Of course,
living
I get that.
and still have pride in their job in a way that they say, I'm going to do my job well, regardless of,
You know,
where I'm going to live. But I do wonder if we could practice preference.
well,
If
you know what?
all things being equal, if you live
we
in,
used to do it. We used to do it all the time. And if we used to do it, I don't know why we can't still do it.
maybe if we went out of town, we'd
And-
be in a
and
better
yes,
place.
Well, I think there's other reasons that this is all taking a big stall here. But anyways, you know, give them time to move this community. They'll have so much more pride if they, I don't care if they live in North King, they love North Kingston, the kids live there. I mean, the job is, that's part of the job in Coventry is you gotta move here. And guess what? You'll get the same people applying. You'll get the same exact people that apply. Same people still apply. All those people, 99 out of 100 of those people that had not to grab would move here. Would move here. 99 out of 100 would move here. It'd
So
only be that one person who was promised the job and told them they didn't have to move. We'll give you a raise. You don't have to move here.
just one other point, and then I apologize, Michael.
I'm sorry. Mike knows me,
People in different generations think of jobs differently.
right?
And
You call me
Generation Xers
You call me
and
old?
I'm calling you great. Generation Xers and millennials, though, do not work for the same company for 20 years. Usually it's 5 to 7 years they work someplace. Now, I think I would still move someplace if I was getting a $150,000 a year job.
Sure.
And it was more than I was currently making.
It's more than most people in
But-
town make.
Sure. But do we want to make it, going to Michael's point, the only talent pool we're looking at are people in Coventry or people willing to move here? We have a pretty tight housing market. You know, getting people here in 6 months, getting them the house they want, the neighborhood they want, everything they're looking for to raise their family. I just feel as if it's a part of, I didn't think of your point earlier, and I think it's a great point about town pride and taking care of the town that you live in. I feel it's a huge criteria in it, your talent pool really
I
shows.
can just see huge conflicts, especially if you get someone that this town has monies exchanged with. We're exchanging monies with another community. That's, yeah, you know, and you grew up in that other town. Say you grew up in that town your whole life, like I did here. People, I know hundreds of thousands of people in town, they talk to you all the time. And I got people gnawing at me all the time to do stuff, right? You know, gnawing at me all the time to take care of your town. I'm just saying, not that you're not gonna write the person. Hey, if they can't find a house in 6 months, we give them an extension. We give them an extension. They can't find a house.
Sounds like the council
You
can
know
change
what?
it that well anyway.
I tell you what, there's a lot of apartments for rent in Coventry. They could start off in an apartment like I did, most people did when they first got a job. I mean, I didn't own a house right out of the get-go.
Well, this isn't a
I
person right out of the
understand.
get-go. This is a person who's gone through college, has 5 years of experience. Like, this person's been working. They're not right out of the get-go. They did that at their first job. Like, they're not in their first job.
Why are they leaving that first job?
Well, I'm just saying, the person we're looking for has a bachelor's degree. They have 5 years experience already. They're ready to be a town manager. I don't want the newbie. I want someone who's ready to be my town manager.
Yeah,
Like-
but you know what? There should be a point system then. You know, it's like you take a police job, right? You get 60 points for living in town or whatever. It's 20 points, 10 points. You get residency points and you get points along the way. Maybe there should be some people besides a headhunter on this committee, a few regular people
Right.
on this besides all the headhunters.
They're doing it
They
for
can
free.
just have a realistic view at it and say, hey, you know what? You know, we're just realistic people. We live in town.
Yeah.
We just want to know what's going on in our town, you know?
Honestly,
Not having some politicians tell us what's going on.
yeah, honestly, I think what you want to pay for the job and the stipulations around it, you're not going to attract a lot.
But you're
Somebody,
gonna
somebody
get,
that's out there working already. a lot more
by
than that.
dropping that master's
Making a lot more than
degree, you're gonna get thousands of more applications if they're allowed to apply still. I don't know if they're even allowed to still apply, you know?
What, apply again? Apply again if they didn't get the job on the first application, you
Well,
mean?
no, I'm just saying, I guess it's a process going on right now, right? Am I understanding this correctly? It's a process. So, if we drop that, are we gonna allow the current applications or we're gonna let thousands of other new ones apply? I don't know.
I think we're
Maybe we should
we're
table
getting
this,
way
huh?
beyond our.
We should table this then.
I think that they're already
already voted
doing
on
some
it.
vetting based on these current.
Right,
They
but
are
that's the
still-
council. We're not the council,
Yeah.
Correct.
and we're here to change that.
We gotta
Correct.
move,
But the
have them move a little
resolution
faster.
So
has already
again,
been
the way,
made to go to the voters to,
But that's the council. The charter review didn't approve that.
well, actually, the council has
Yeah.
to.
The
approve
charter approved, the
our-
charter,
our-
the charter review, they don't have to approve that, is what you're saying. Why are we even talking about it then?
So
Yeah,
the
no.
process is that the normal process is charter review comes up with
First,
suggestions.
first, then the
that-
council, right?
Right. But that does not preclude the council from taking its own initiative to submit something to the ballot. So what happened back in May is the council passed a resolution and said, this is going on the ballot. So what you have in the packet handout, the council resolution that I circulated from May 15th of this year, was what the council already voted on in terms of amending section 5.01. So doesn't preclude the Charter Commission from making a further amendment, but you should be aware your amendment to this section is then going to be vetted by the council, who already vetted section 5.01.
Will they relook at it though?
Well, I mean,
If we
the
give them
process,
something, don't they have to look at it?
yes, they do.
Okay, then great, let's give them something to look at. So let's give them something to look at.
need a succession plan.
Gotta speed them up.
Well, everything that you're working on in these next few weeks, remember, is going to be, if you vote to approve it, it's going to be put in front of the town council on either July 20th or 27th, so that hopefully, and the council does have an up or down vote on whatever comes out of this commission. Whatever comes out of this commission receives an up vote from the council, will then be on the ballot in November. So that's the time frame and timeline. This commission certainly can put forth another change to section 5.01. It's within your authority to do that. I just provided you this information because that's what the council has already saw fit to do. Doesn't mean you can't submit another iteration of 5.01.
Well, I'm gonna put in a motion then that the person only has within 6 months, but they can extend it for another 6 months, up to 2 years. They can extend it 6 months, but they have to live in town eventually. I wanna make a motion. Town manager has to have some Coventry town pride, live in Coventry. If not, they have 6 months to get there, and we'll extend it up to a year and a half. I make that motion. I mean, you don't have to second it. I make the motion. That's the highest paid job in the town,
Most power.
most powerful job in town, biggest taxes we'll get back in town, right there. Why? I don't know. I mean, is it just me? Why wouldn't everybody want? I don't care.
Do we get
You'll
income
find
taxes off of Coventry Town?
What's that?
Well, you pay income taxes to your state and your federal government, right?
Yes.
Fire tax, car
Oh,
Okay.
I pay
So they-
$1,000
okay, I got
for
you.
that tax,
I got
property
you.
tax. You
right?
know?
It's a lot of
I
taxes.
mean, that's a lot of money. And if
Right.
they're taking that kind of money, they're gonna buy a
They
big
can
spread.
afford it.
They're gonna buy a nice big spread, you
So
know?
you're making a motion. Is anybody seconding it?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Two opposed.
Can I just ask if anyone abstained? Okay, I wasn't sure I heard everybody.
Thank you. Now we go on.
I would actually make a motion, if you could, though, that we would state we would give preference to someone living in or willing to move to Coventry. It's not a requirement of the job, but we would give preferential treatment to that person.
Sure.
So-
I mean, I got no problem with that. I mean, you're not saying change the thing I just made, but just give preference.
No, I'm just saying, we wouldn't say they have to live here.
Right.
We would just give preferential treatment to the person willing to do so.
Sure.
So I make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Oops, I turned off my mic. We should work together more.
Can we go back to the section 5.03, the 180 days? We talked about changing the language there to give the town council more
Mhm.
room. We ought to probably go look at that,
Yeah.
make that change.
Yeah, I think, do we have to put that on another agenda, Dave? Because I think he's 100% right.
So I think what I suggested, and I don't recall that there was a vote on it, but what I suggested was that I would simply add some language at the end of the last sentence that allowed the council to extend that 180 days as it saw fit.
Yeah,
I think that's the easiest fix to that. If you want to take a vote on that, that's fine. I was going to draft that and present it to you for Thursday, but a vote this evening actually makes it easier.
perfect. Can I make the motion?
Sure.
I make a motion.
I second it.
Richard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Because of the fact that I think David already reached out about this, I'm going to say let's move on to 4.6, the charter requirement for superintendent of schools to reside in Rhode Island, superintendent of schools minimum requirements for position. I know, Dave, you had sent some information out about that requirement. Is it the same as you're talking about for,
It's
The town
yes,
manager?
It's the same.
okay. And I know, Richard, that, was it you who brought that up originally,
Yeah, I
Mike?
did. Because I was looking at even superintendent of Providence, he was in Florida, now he's living in Providence. Let's move there. You're paying that, give him enough money.
So,
We're probably the only town in the state that doesn't have a superintendent, that doesn't even live in the state.
I do not know the truth
Right.
or untruth of that statement, but based on our,
I'm gonna look it all up, I'll look up every town.
and your reasoning was tax-based as well, right? Not him not living in this, the fact that he doesn't live in the state more than he doesn't live in the town?
Well, like you
That-
said, Brad said, influence the people and give them a raise, and I don't care. I'm not gonna be paying it.
Is it the I'm actually gonna, Richard, please.
Different rules for different states.
How do you mean?
There's different regulations for different states. Like Massachusetts is different than Rhode Island. Connecticut's different than us. New York's different than us. We all have different rules for the job. And if they live in this state, they know the rules. That's all.
Right, so living in Massachusetts, you had mentioned, I think, in the last meeting, they might
They have
think of the
different rules,
Massachusetts laws. Okay,
They'd incorporate their ideas too, instead of Rhode Island ideas.
And all the people in that state, we
Massachusetts,
couldn't get a
okay.
superintendent that lives in Rhode Island?
I'm thinking we could.
A lot of people did apply for that job. I do know that.
Yeah.
We had a ton of people apply for that.
$3,400 a week, I'd take it.
I can't figure out the new math, so I can't.
I don't think the superintendent has
160
to.
grand a year,
I'll figure it out.
plus health benefits.
You know, kind of conversely to what you said, Richard, sometimes you come up with new ideas because your state has different ideas. So that's just another thought process. I don't know that I'm really moved either way on this one, but does anyone have any comments they'd like to make? Claire?
Again, particularly with the superintendent, who gets a 3-year contract
Mhm.
that is reviewed on a regular basis. I think when you're looking for talent and you're looking for people to come in, that you have to just open it up to being not so specific to the town. And believe me, I have Coventry pride. I've lived here many, many years and graduated from Coventry High, and my kids graduated from Coventry High, and they graduated from Rhode Island universities.
Nice.
But I still feel that they're coming in, if they're qualified and they feel that they are that qualified, to hire them, that superintendent is going to be focused on what he needs to do for the students of this town. Because if he doesn't, and he doesn't do everything that he can for this school system in this town, he's not going to have the job. So I don't think he's not going to look at
No,
his laws, his school's laws regarding here. Again, like she said, maybe they bring in some new input. I just don't think it's necessarily required. And in speaking, granted, I know that the superintendent's salary is good. But by the same token, he comes from a high income state and prices are high there, but homes here even.
No, but I was just
Homes
saying.
here, when you're coming in and you're buying a home and you have family that's established in, let's say like he is in Massachusetts, and you're coming in, and a lot of these homes, let's face it, are around $450,000, a little higher, a little lower, and you're coming in here for 3 years hoping that you're going to stay. But again, with superintendents and that kind of thing, it is mobile now. And you don't see superintendents that are there for 30 and 40 years. So I just don't think that it has to be a requirement. Honestly, Mr. Levis probably spends more time here than he does in his own home. But that's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's right. I just feel that it
Well, it's
isn't
like I
a
was saying about
requirement.
Providence. Why did that guy go from Florida to Providence? Just more money. He's a new
Listen,
You moved
superintendent.
from
the amount of
Florida.
time and effort. This is a big town with a big school system.
Yeah.
It's not just the money. I just don't believe it. It's not just the money. That's just my opinion.
Yes, Richard.
Supposedly, Massachusetts has a tax, what is it, 2.0 or something? That the property taxes are reduced, from what I understand. That's what my state rep said.
Mhm.
He said that they have a lower property tax thing because of some law they made there. But that shouldn't make any difference anyway. I think it should be in the state. I didn't say the town, the state. There's a difference. And we should have somebody qualified in the state of Rhode Island that can do the job, unless we're really doing bad things in the education section.
Well, I do think, a town like Coventry probably could get a good superintendent from a town. You take the Providence situation, I think they were looking for some new ideas there. Is 15.02, I know it doesn't mention the superintendent, but does it cover some of the things we've spoken about? Or does it have to, because it's about residents of employees? All
So,
municipal department heads have to reside in.
right. So the relationship, you'll notice that the superintendent, unlike the town manager, does not actually appear in the charter. And the reason for that is that the superintendent is appointed by the school committee, but school committees are interesting. Well, maybe I think they're interesting. They're unique bodies because they're elected locally, certainly from within the town. But when you look at what a school committee does, they are in essence agents of the General Assembly, because Title 16 and the education law is really a set function of the General Assembly in the state of Rhode Island. So as Claire mentioned, the superintendent receives a 3-year contract from the school committee. One of the rationales behind that 3-year contract is non-interference, even though it's not specifically stated anywhere. It's to ensure that a superintendent who is selected for a position can have a term of employment that exceeds the elected term of the majority of that school committee. It's sort of a built-in continuity, but it's also to allow that person to be free from, or at least theoretically be free from influence, from political type influence. But the superintendent does not exist in the charter. The school committee exists in the charter. I think it would be, I think the absence of the superintendent in the charter is actually by design. It's because the superintendent is really outside of the realm of the Charter Review Commission, because the superintendent is really only in the superintendent's only nexus to the municipality is through the school committee. And the superintendent's duties and responsibilities are actually not set by charter, unlike the town managers. The superintendent's duties and responsibilities are established by state law, Title 16. And in fact, the specific powers and duties of a school committee are also set by Title 16, and also certainly their election and their qualification for office and the service and term of their sort of electability is within the charter. But that's really it. It's and they have certain roles in the charter, but they also have a significant number of roles established by state law that the town does not have the ability to overrule or to change or modify. So I think the reason that you don't see the superintendent in the charter is because the superintendent is really outside of your reach by operation of law.
Okay.
So.
All right. So it seems as if that's something that we can't vote on. We're just going to say that that's not part of our role here.
Where does this paycheck come from? Taxpayers.
And I want to try to be of assistance to the committee. You're charged with putting proposals together. And you speak with passion, and you represent the feeling and thrust of the town and the community that you live in. Quite frankly, your question about 15.02, I think that provision has been overridden by state law.
Okay.
I think that Mr. Inman is wrong on the state law, but I say that respectfully. I'm trying to present you with not what David wrote, but what the General Assembly wrote. Here's what it says.
Right. So
And
that's
it
your
does.
interpretation of it.
Right.
That's your interpretation of it. Am I right? That's your interpretation of that law. You're not saying that's the fact. You're saying that's your interpretation of it.
I'm saying it's the law, and I think it is.
You're saying that's a fact.
I think it is clearly written, and I did say that.
Okay, I hear you saying it's clearly written. You're saying all the right words, but I'm asking you a question right on. Is that fact?
I have to say
Or is
yes.
it your opinion?
No,
You say it's fact.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to look into that.
No.
I don't want to vote on that. I'm
So, absolutely. I'm not here to constrain.
Opinions that we're passionate about, each one of us, and we should be able to express them.
Right.
And if you feel there's something wrong, you're on council. I'm with you 100%. But unless you can tell me that's factual, I'm not with
This, and you all can take a look at it. I'll write whatever you vote on. That's my
you. You have a
job.
stenographer for taking this down too? A steno?
Yeah, we have.
We have
No,
someone
we just
taking
have
meeting
some taking the
minutes.
minutes.
This is not
Oh,
stenographic.
so someone listens to this. That's gonna be tough. Okay.
So unless anyone objects, it is 8 o'clock. We have portions of this agenda on Thursday's agenda as well. So finishing the rest of the agenda on Thursday, but opening up the phone to public comments right now. Does anyone object? Do you have something you need to say? Sure.
Just a question. The town charter that we're working on, does the school department have their own rules and regulations they follow with everything, or?
The laws, but when you look at Article 4, which is school committee in the charter, and I'm just for the record, I'm just going to read off this. So you have 4.01 membership, 4.02 election, then filling vacancies, qualifications of school committee members, selection of chairman and clerk, some meetings, and then when you look at the powers and duties, control school policy, submit budget estimates, be in charge of buildings and equipment, attending to new buildings and additions, purchasing for the school department, the power to subpoena, and such other duties as may be prescribed by law and are not inconsistent with the charter. And it talks about forfeiture of office, an annual report, which is a fiscal requirement, and cooperation with other departments. So these 3 pages do provide a very, what I would refer to as a very skeletal framework of what the school committee's role is. But in addition to this, and frankly supplemented to this, is Title 16 of the general laws, which deals with education. So within that general law, I believe it's 16-2-9. I'm not 100% certain, but there's actually an entire section that says powers and duties of school committees. And then it includes powers and duties. There's another section that lists powers and duties of superintendents. And then consistent with some law that was just amended and made effective January 1st of 2020, principals now have an entire section of powers and duties that greatly expands what they had before. And that's all part of the Rhode Island Education Accountability Act. But there's a certain outline of school committee roles set forth in the charter. Then there's the more specific legal powers and duties that set forth in the general laws. So it's, when it comes to the school committee, it's not just what's in the charter, it's what's in the charter, and additionally, it's a lot of laws and requirements and powers and duties under Title 16 of the general laws of Rhode Island.
So basically, the superintendent issue, that could be like all on the school committee and not really.
It is. That's what I was saying. That's
right,
why
it has nothing to do with town issues.
Correct.
Where the town side. Okay.
Correct. That's
what I
why.
just-
That's why you have town council appoints town manager, and we have certain roles of the town manager that are specifically prescribed. And you have a school committee, but you don't have a superintendent, because really the superintendent is appointed by the school committee and is separate from the town.
Okay.
I mean, yes, everyone gets their paycheck. It all says Town of Coventry, but it's a separate role, a separate authority.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Especially.
The town of Coventry is generous.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss before we open up to, only based on 4.1 through 4.6 of the agenda? All right, hearing nothing. I would like to open the floor to public comment if there is any.
Turn volume up. Can somebody just say something to make sure we don't have any feedback?
Test.
Ed? Nope, seem good?
Anybody want to say?
A little bit. Did you see any hands raised? Is that how?
There is. There's
Okay.
at least one. I believe Ann Dixon, and I don't know if anybody else.
Okay. So should I just ask who wants to speak up? I don't see anybody.
Yes, and just ask, they identify.
If anyone would like to speak from the public, please identify yourself with your name and address. Please unmute yourself.
At this point, we have absolutely no one who's looking to ask a question.
Where did he go?
Okay. He
He's
went
at
to
the
the golf
airport.
course.
He left already.
Okay, with that being said, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, guys, thank you all for your time. We'll see you on Thursday. I will see you virtually on Thursday.